We've come up with all different kinds of creative ways to put people into different classes and identities. Some of these classes are determined by how much money a person has. We treat different people differently based on how much money we perceive them to have. For some people, it's the type of clothing they wear. Sometimes we categorize people and look at them differently based on their race or their ethnicity, their social status, their career. Sometimes we have more respect for people of certain careers and less respect for people of other certain careers. Someone's personality, if they're outgoing or if they're reclusive, their intelligence, how smart they are or lack thereof, their power, how much influence they have, their popularity, how everybody else perceives them. Sometimes we're nicer to people just because everyone else likes them, even if we don't really like them. What kind of car they drive, who their spouse is, what their last name is, who they're related to, how funny they are, how talented they are, what they look like, how attractive they are. That's a burden I have to bear. We have come up with so many different ways to categorize people. We get a lot of help with this too. Here's some examples. The way our culture wants to deal with the evil of racism is something that is a manifestation of modern-day cultural Marxism called critical race theory. The idea is not to teach people how to resolve the past and learn to walk together in unity today to enable us to find a place of mutual respect and fear, but instead keep reminding us of our differences. Keep using victimization techniques to make each class feel like they are hated by the other, and keep pointing at all the things that we're trying to get past. Basically, let's just keep stoking the fires of hate. And what a wonderful demonic plan to counter an evil with the same evil, to kill racism by insisting that we do more racism. If you truly believe that you can get rid of a disease by pumping more of that disease into the person, you are either ignorant or doing it on purpose. And you can discern what's going on with each individual case. It's not just enough that we have all of these superficial external things that we can categorize and split off into sections and divide ourselves with, but now we allow people to create divisions and classes based on their own imaginations. If you are a biological male and you decide you want to be a girl, you can do that. We'll agree to call you by one of your selection of the near 100 pronouns that are now on the list. It's whatever you decide to be that day. We're also going to let you compete in female sports if you're a biological male. That way, in case you're a below average competitor amongst men, you'll be able to excel amongst women. We'll let you go in there with your biologically stronger and faster body, wipe the floor of all the girls, ripping them of their dignity and accolades for all their hard work, mocking the very femininity that we say we stand for. We won't just allow this, we'll cheer it on. We'll call it good. We'll let you, Leah Thomas, get dressed in a girl's locker room while they stand there with a biological male in their presence. You cannot challenge this immorality. 30 years ago, we would have called this perversion and locked someone up for indecent exposure. But now we call it inclusivity and good. You cannot challenge this immorality, or you'll put someone in a class of people, or you will be put in a class of people that cause trauma and provoke suicide. We have to coddle the person that denies their God-given biological gender so they can expose themselves in a girl's locker room. And while we're at it, let's put some children's literature in our public libraries and our schools and encourage children to seek out fantasies at an age where the line between fantasy and reality is not even close to being fully developed. We put out video games and put ratings on them because children don't know how to draw the line between what's real and what's not. So let's provoke the idea of their sexuality at ages of which they're not even close to being able to handle. Heck, why keep this within our species? Why keep this just a Homo sapien thing? You feel like a cat today? Go about your day as a cat. We'll call you furry. We'll put a litter box in the restroom. Call you by your cat name. Let you respond to the teacher with a purr. So now we have people that create their own classes in their own minds, in their own imaginations, and we have to comply. How much more can you show personal favoritism and partiality? But I'm not sure I've seen the sin of partiality any more sinister or developed in this culture at a mass scale than when a person for no legitimate medical concern decides to eliminate the life of an image-bearing child, showing partiality of themselves and their sexual decisions over the life of a human being. And what this really is a worship of sex. I want to do it when I want, with whom I want, how I want, as irresponsibly as I desire, and taking the life of a human being is an acceptable sacrifice on the altar of my sex god. The partiality is not only in the life of this child not being significant to allow them to live in my perception, but that my personal freedom, liberty, and choice is more important than their heartbeat. Now, I want you to know, if you struggle with racism, gender dysphoria, or if you've had an abortion or struggled, there is grace and forgiveness in the cross of Christ. I use these as common modern-day examples of how the sin of partiality has worked itself out in the world. But if you turn to Christ for forgiveness, He is faithful and just to forgive. There is nothing of which is too sinister for Him to forgive. His grace is that strong, and it is mighty to save. When we speak of these things, I must speak with direct passion against the sin and against the demonic influences that influence them. All sin is grievous to the Lord. And that's why we rejoice in the cross. Because we've all broken the law. Remember what Jesus said. I've not committed adultery. He says, but you have in your heart when you've lusted after someone else. I've not committed murder, but you have in your heart when you're angered towards your brother. You're angry towards your brother. We've all broken the heart of the law. So it is not for us to sit and look at someone else and judge them through our own eyes. We judge them according to the Word, but we allow Christ to deal with that. But they can be saved and redeemed and forgiven just like we have been. But we all have to realize we all came from the same pit. Partiality is a grave sin. Rather, it's these examples or a person of affluence walking into the church and everybody buddies up to them thinking that they're popular and they have money and they can give a lot of money to the church and, oh, look, really cool if I hang out with them. Buddying up to them while the poor person comes in nobody knows their name and they don't really they can't even afford a stick of deodorant, and we're not going to talk to them. We're just going to pretend that they don't exist. The root of that sin is the same things that I just listed. So we can't sit and say amen to all those things, but not say amen to showing favoritism to people based on their social condition and their money, their influence, and how they look. It's the same root sin.